Hey everyone, welcome back to Max Solo Music. My name is Max, and in this video we'll try to figure out what is the difference between these two Harley Benton acoustic guitars. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm not really an acoustic guitar player. You might have seen an acoustic guitar in my videos before, but it always was more of an exception than a regular thing. So there is a little bit of a story behind why I have these two guitars here. A few months ago, I had to record some acoustic guitars in the studio for a project I work with occasionally. The problem was that I didn't have an acoustic guitar I was happy with. Well, I played some Harley Benton acoustics before, I knew they were great value for money, and I thought, well, that must be the easiest way to get a decent acoustic guitar without spending too much. So I went to Thomann in search for one and got lost. Because they have too many acoustic guitars. There are 50 Harley Bentons in the Dreadnought category alone. How can you possibly pick one? So I thought, alright, the more expensive ones must probably in some way be better than the others, and I just ended up ordering the most expensive Dreadnought, the CLD40SM, for €379, and the most expensive ground Auditorium, well, because it has a different shape, and I wanted to have some choice in terms of sound in the studio, the CLG650SM for €449. Which is still €200 cheaper than the acoustic guitar I already had, yeah, the one that sounded terrible. I've also contacted Harley Benton and asked if they would be interested in sponsoring this video, and they said yeah, which is great. It means I might be able to keep one of these guitars if I like it. There wasn't much time left until my studio day, and I was afraid the guitars won't be delivered in time. However, they showed up a day before my studio appointment. I've unboxed the guitars, and the packaging and the contents were absolutely identical, except for the guitars themselves, of course. I've spent 5 minutes with each of them and immediately noticed a few things. Well, first of all, both sounded better and louder than a much more expensive acoustic guitar I already had, the one I wasn't happy with. Second, both guitars had very rough, unpolished frets, which sounded like a sandpaper when I tried to play any bends. Well, unfortunate, but I guess that comes with the price. And it's an easy fix, so it didn't bother me too much. Another thing I've noticed that wasn't there in the beginning but showed up a couple of months later, sharp fret ends. This winter was cold and I had to use heating a lot, and even many of my vintage guitars now have sharp fret ends because of that, so this is something I could expect, and again, that's an easy fix. My studio session went pretty well, and there is a detailed video about it on my secondary channel in Russian, but long story short, I've used the Dreadnought for written parts and the ground Auditorium for leads, and everyone was happy with the sound. I've also made a couple of posts about it on my Instagram, which you've probably already seen if you follow me. If you don't, now is the best time to change that. If you look at the specs, you'll notice that the only big difference between these two guitars, other than the body shape, is the neck Tonewood. Which might as well be a mistake in the specs because they look absolutely identical, and I have a good feeling that they actually are. Here are the fretboards, which look the same as well. The nut looks like bone to me. Here's the front and the back of the headstock. The neck heel is indeed different, but not the preamp or the bridge. There are a couple of minor cosmetic things like inlays or binding. And of course the Dreadnought doesn't have the armrest, which is a nice feature on the Grand Auditorium. So essentially we can say that these two guitars are the same, and the only significant difference between them is the body shape, which is interesting because we're not only comparing these two specific guitars, but also can get a feeling about what different body shapes sound like in general. But before we get to sound tests, there is one more thing we need to do, and there is something that I always wanted to do with an acoustic guitar: to look inside. Let's dive in! Alright, that was interesting. Well, these two guitars, they don't feel the same and they don't sound the same. So for the first sound test, I'll be using this Zoom H2N as the room microphone to give you a better feeling about what these guitars sound like in the room, and I will install it somewhere right next to my camera, approximately 1 meter or 3 feet away from the guitar. Ultimately, I want a guitar that not only sounds good in the room, but also on stage when it is plugged, or on the recordings and in the mix when studio microphones are used, just like this one. So let's execute a slightly more sophisticated test. So for this one, I'm using 6 microphones, 2 large membrane condensers mounted on gravity goosenecks, 2 small membrane mics, and 2 dynamic microphones. Here's what it looks like from above, so I have 3 stereo pairs, and additionally, I'm recording the sound of the built-in piezo pickup through a splitter. Its first output goes into the NUX Stagement preamp with a little bit of a reverb, and the second output goes right into the audio interface. So I'm using all 8 inputs of my Audient 880 preamp. And by the way, our secondary mission today is to figure out which of these mics work better on an acoustic guitar. As I've mentioned before, these 2 guitars are equipped with exactly the same piezo pickup Fishman Flex Plus T, so in theory, when plugged, they should sound identical. Let's find out if that's the case. First, you will hear the dry sound, and later the sound through the NUX preamp. I couldn't hear much of a difference. Let's move on to the microphones, and as always, in that corner you'll be able to see which mic is being used at every moment. And finally, let's check these two guitars in a context of a song. And for the mix, I've decided to go with two large membrane condensers, hard pan left and right, and a single small membrane right in the middle for some additional high end. Well, again, in a mix like this, I don't really hear much of a difference between these two guitars, to be honest, even though in the room they do sound differently. Not an easy choice. Let me know in the comments below which one of these guitars would you personally pick, and I think I already have a favorite one. Anyhow, that's it for today. Thanks for watching this video, hope you enjoyed it, stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, you've reached the end of the video, and I really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed it. I actually want to get to know you guys, so before you go, please leave me a comment below, just say where you're from, what is your favorite guitar or guitar pedal, and how you came across my channel. If you want to support what I do, other than Patreon, there's another easy and free way to do that. Simply show this video to one of your guitar friends who it may be interesting to, and share it, the video, not a friend, in guitar groups and communities on social media. There's never too many views, and that would really help me a lot. And other than that, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video someday soon.